Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's live stream. We have three, what I call unspecial guests, regulars, family party regulars, coming to join us in a little while. We're going to talk about our new First Minister and reflect on the SNP leadership campaign. What a story that's been. There's lots to talk about there. So look forward to your comments as well. Let me just get this up on my screen. So yeah, do throw your own comments in as well. A little bit of family party news before we launch into that. I was over in Logs yesterday evening with Neil. We went to the branch meeting there. It was great, Ayrshire branch meeting. Karen there is our branch chairman. Yeah, really good. They're making plans for street stalls, various events, maybe at a university, maybe at the air show. We had quite a humorous conversation talking about the air show in Ayr. You can imagine the confusion around that. But it is actually an air show in Ayr. And I learned there's sort of one where aeroplanes fly around in the sky. That's the air show in Ayr. So yeah, great plans there. So that was good. And tomorrow we are in Denny. There's a group of parents in Denny, which is just near to Falkirk, who are organising a demonstration in the town there about the sex education, gender education in particular, in the local primary school, maybe a bit more broadly as well. There might be people from the high school as well. So that's the first in Scotland, and that's the first time a group of parents at one particular school have organised some sort of gathering of this nature. So do come and join us. There'll be a few short speeches from some of the parents, from some of us as well. We're joining with them to support them in that campaign. So if you can make it to Denny, 10 o'clock in the morning, Denny Cross, which I understand is next to the library. There's a huge car park next to the library. It's right in the centre of the town. It's quite a small town. So it would be great to see you there, 10 o'clock in the morning in Denny. I think did I mention last time our abortion placards have now arrived, so they're ready and waiting to be deployed. We're waiting for the suitable opportunity to do those. We're not going to show them to the general public, but we'll use them, for example, to go to MSP's constituency offices, or the sort of things where MSPs are going to see them, like where the MSPs come out of the Scottish Parliament, for example, their side door, that sort of thing. So that will be a little story to tell when we've got those in action. Other news, I mean, YouTube's been going a bit crazy. We find with YouTube, if we make videos on a topic that people are interested in UK-wide, then we get a lot of views on them. And that's what's tended to happen. A lot of attention on the SNP leadership campaign. And because people all over the UK are interested, that means the YouTube algorithm shows our videos to quite a lot of people. So it's been great to have quite a lot of attention and feedback there. And the other thing was our street stall in Glasgow on Saturday was very successful. So set up a little gazebo on Buchanan Street, some placards there, and lots of people chatting. I would say roughly 50-50 people who were, disgusted, how dare you type things. Then people say, oh yeah, I really agree. Quite a lot of people saying, oh wow, I'm just amazed that you dare put up things saying that. Some people saying, I'm amazed you dare do it because it's so terrible. Some people saying, oh, I completely agree with you. And it's really great that you put those up. I'm amazed that you're so brave as to have those placards up in the middle of Glasgow. So that was very fruitful. We're hoping to do that around Scotland in the months to come, particularly as the weather's a little bit warmer. We've got the gear. So when local branches want to do that, we're ready to deliver a gazebo and placards and a table and a bit of everything you need to do that. We can help you provide them the resources. It'd be great to have a string of this sort of event around Scotland. The Fife branch is looking at having something at the Fife show, having a stall at the Fife show. I think there's some sort of country show in Orkney as well, where our new Orkney branch will be hopefully having a little stall that's been discussed as well. So we'll see. Lots of irons in the fire, and hopefully we'll be busy with that sort of thing through the summer. Right, let us move on to our main topic and our guests this evening. So joining me we have Niall. Welcome back, Niall.
Hello, Richard. It's great to be back.
It's good to see you. Is it just a couple of weeks since you were on?
I think it was just exactly 2 weeks today, I think.
2 weeks, sure. Right. Welcome back. Right, Michael as well, our chairman.
Hi, Richard.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be back.
Phil, our deputy leader, is coming to share his thoughts as well. Welcome, Phil.
Good evening.
Now, Phil's obviously in his own study at the moment, just really boring. Sometimes he broadcasts from his wife's study as well, which is really interesting. It's got a lovely
more interesting.
Behind,
I might have to go downstairs and do some washing up in the middle of this or something like that.
Yeah, we've got the bland version this evening.
Put the dog out.
So where do we start? Where do we start with Mr Yousaf? Well, let's start with a question we can each answer. In your heart of hearts, who were you hoping was going to win the SNP leadership contest?
I think that was a hard one, really, because, you know, I think it was best for us if Humza won as a party. You know, that he doesn't seem to, like, the SNP, among the people that voted for the SNP, he was not as popular as Kate, and then, you know, nationally not as popular as Kate. And he does have a sort of track record of kind of failure, as Kate has sort of pointed out. And so as a party opposing them, it's sort of good to have a weaker opposition. As well for Kate, you know, towards the beginning of her campaign, she stood for some values that were, you know, close to what we'd say, you know, that on like gender recognition and things like that, you know, and I think towards the end she'd almost compromised in all of those areas, and that would have been hard for us as a party. I think having to attack her for not, you know, not doing what she believed. She tied her own hands. She'd committed to seeing the gender, you know, recognition reform bill somehow pushed through in some form, conversion therapy to go through, and all of these things. And so, yeah, that would have been difficult, because I think a lot of people who are naturally our supporters and are pro-independence would think Kate's the right option, when really she wouldn't make a difference. But that said, when she lost, I felt my stomach sink as I saw Humza take position, and just knowing what that means, like standing for abortion at full term, you know, that I think we're going to see everything that we say billed as hate speech and all those kind of things. He's so willing to play those cards. And I think as he makes recommendations to the police and to schools and things like that, not necessarily the legislation, it will up the temperature, you know, on us as a party.
Yeah. Right. Listen, I'll just mention one thing before handing on. This full decriminalisation of abortion, I got that. The Back Off campaign sent a message they wrote to each of the candidates and said, will you commit to? And one of the things was decriminalisation of abortion. And they announced that Mr Yousaf had replied saying he's committing to that. And they tweeted, Mr Yousaf has committed to decriminalisation of abortion. Now, recently, maybe even today, they've published what he actually said. And what he said is decriminalisation within time limits. So it wouldn't necessarily be removing the time limit, the 24-week time limit, but it would be removing the need for two doctors to sign. And it wouldn't be covered by the law in the same way. So basically, instead of two doctors having to lie about it, it would remove that process. So I was sort of apologizing, because I've said this in my video as well. So I'm sort of apologizing, but it's sort of Back Off's fault, because the way they presented it, it wasn't an accurate reflection of what is said. But he has committed to that within this term, which is going to put one of our issues on the political agenda even more.
Yeah, so I feel that Kate would have dragged her feet on all of these issues. You know, she'd committed to bringing them through, but she'd be dragging her feet, whereas Humza will be full force doing it with a cabinet which is, you know, made up of people of a similar persuasion. Like we've seen, you know, Kate reject that position as like rural affairs person or whatever it is. So, yeah.
What do you think, Michael? Who are you rooting for?
Well, I mean, you phrased the question in your heart of hearts. I mean, politicians are not supposed to have hearts, and you certainly get hardened because of the riposte you get when you go around the doors delivering leaflets. Or if they do speak to you, they'll say, "Oh, I don't trust any politicians," and you're desperately trying to say to them, "Well, look, we're a bit different." But I suppose we can be easy with our conscience. But I never, ever really trusted that Kate would be able to deliver. And it was horrible, I thought, seeing her sort of decimate herself, trying to justify the political ends, with her own religious sort of views, and it was a nightmare. So in my heart of hearts, I always had Humza, the topic of conversation this evening. I thought it would be good for us. It would be good for the political debate and political, moving the political narrative along a bit. I think things will change, even though he says he'll be the candidate of continuity with Sturgeon's legacy. I think we're going to see some fireworks, and I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities for ourselves, and I'm afraid to say, the Labour Party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you think, Niall? Who were you rooting for, or were you a neutral observer?
Well, I mean, putting party politics aside, like Phil was saying, I think all of us were secretly rooting for Kate because she's obviously the best candidate for Scotland as a whole. But with Humza getting it, I mean, the SNP have signed their own death warrant effectively. They're just going to continue plummeting in the polls. I mean, I felt as soon as the vote come through, I felt like I should have barricaded my door just in case the hate crime police come after me instantaneously. But I mean, this is... Kate was obviously the better candidate for Scotland as a whole, the uniter. She said that as much, that they need to further the case for independence before, driving it home. It makes zero sense. Like Ash Reagan was saying, with just 50+1, every election's now a de facto referendum, which can't happen. So I'm glad that Humza's got out. I'm secretly glad that Humza's got it, but then also pensive and fearful at the same time, if you know what I mean. It's a tricky situation because, like I said, I was putting a big bar across the door, waiting for the police to show up. It's outrageous that that Humza's managed to sneak in, and personally, I think it's a whole big fix, but we'll see in times to come. I feel sorry for Kate in the same way Michael did, and that she was, stuck between a rock and a hard place as a Christian, trying to justify all these SNP policies of the transgenderism, of the gay marriage, of the abortion, and even getting pilloried by moderators in the debates. Would you have an abortion? When she's just had a child. I thought it was actually sickening to see moderators go after her and journalists to go after her in that respect. It was really horrible to see. It was a horrible contest, resulting in the most horrible candidate getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would probably echo the same thoughts. Obviously, who would have run Scotland better? Well, Kate Forbes would have run Scotland better, but I would worry from our point of view. We'd find basically Christians, a vast number of Christians would think, oh, fantastic, prayers are answered, Kate Forbes is the First Minister, and it would maybe take them 10 years to realise it's actually not making much difference. So from the family point of view, that would have been quite tough. But as it is, what I've been saying is, she had everything going for her. Her career has just fallen into place. She's had perfect opportunities. She had the worst possible candidate up against her, the most incompetent candidate. Everything in her favour, and it still wasn't enough to make it. Even, I think, stretching integrity beyond breaking point in trying to cover up what she really believes and promising solemnly she wouldn't act on what she believes. Even that wasn't good enough, and she still didn't win. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is like the death knell of join the mainstream party. If you're wise and you keep your head down and you play your cards right, you can get to the top and you can really make a difference. So I always say to people now, okay, so you think you're going to have better opportunities than Kate Forbes? You think you're a bit cleverer than her? You think you're a bit better than her? You think you're a bit wiser? Are you? You really think you can make that? I think game's over for that strategy now. I would love to. There's lots of things I'd love to ask Kate Forbes. One of them would be, if a young enthusiastic person came who held your values and said, I want to go into politics, what should I do? Would Kate still say, "Oh, come and join the SNP"?
I certainly hope not.
I would hope not. Because you're inviting people to a lot of pain and failure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so I think it's time for a lot of or even organizations, these organizations that place young people with parties, it's time for them to say, hang on, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What road are we putting people down? We're basically putting them into an impossible position that's going to end in tears. So from our point of view, I think it's quite good if that's the conclusion people are coming to. From that, all good. Something I read today I thought was quite significant. As soon as Mr Yousaf was elected, there's all these articles all over the place. Oh, how fantastic, the first Muslim, the first Pakistani. During the campaign, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing of that at all. And then, we've got a visitor as well. And nothing of that at all. And then, as soon as he's elected, I say that, then that's everywhere. That's the story. Is that deliberate, do you think?
It's what the sorry, I was too distracted by Phil's child there.
as soon as Mr Yousaf's elected, then there's lots of talk
of his identity, of course.
First Muslim, first Pakistani.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this
during
is
the campaign, nothing.
None at all. No, it's really the SNP pride themselves on firsts. First this, first that. Doesn't matter if it's good for the country at all, as long as they got the first ethnic minority, the first trans person, the first LGBT person, the first anything. They pride themselves on first. It's the same thing about the Dems in America. You know, it's the exact same ploy, really. It's the deception that progress is being made somewhere. That's the deception.
Yeah. I've been saying this and saying, you know, no one can say, oh, you know, you're being really suspicious or cynical or whatever. This is what the SNP say. They say it's really important to have the right representation in the top jobs. So I'm sure Nicola Sturgeon will be thinking, right, you know, I've been the first woman. What do we need next? Okay, we haven't got anyone transgender. Okay, next best thing, Pakistani Muslim. Okay, he'll do. You know, that's a breakthrough. That is their mindset. They're not secretive about it. They're perfectly open about it. So that would be a big factor in supporting him. But
yeah, and he is a very good communicator. I mean, I think that was his first post as advisor on communications when he came out of university. I mean, the guy is a thoroughbred politician. That's all he knows. He's not rounded in any other fields. He's not a sort of Renaissance type man. He's that party. He's single-minded. I think even his marriages were with party officials.
That's the SNP for you, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, so
it's
very
a race, not a party.
Very incestuous. I mean, they work harder than you, probably, Richard. These people.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, but
he's a great communicator, and I suspect he's behind this. You know, that let's leave that first Muslim. Let's not play the Muslim card. You know, prior to the leadership election, but straight afterwards, this is the mode we go into. So, you know, a consummate performer, but it's just incredible. He lives and breathes 24/7 SNP policy and politics, and knows nothing about, you know, any other field, not medicine or law or business.
No. I have to think that's weird. Could you imagine, or let's say in some parallel universe, I was an SNP MSP, and suddenly, you know, Mr Yousaf said, right, you're the health secretary. I would feel like saying, I know nothing about running health services. I'm sure there's a massive literature on it, a huge amount to learn, and I know nothing. And you're giving me the top job. I think it's just bizarre. Like Shirley Ann Somerville, she worked for a housing association before she went into politics, but she's put in charge of the education system. I mean, it's a really strange system. It's the same in Westminster or whatever. I think it's just really odd. And then, so you might do that for a few years. Then they'll move you to something else that you haven't got a clue about. That's really strange. If I was put as, say, you know, health secretary, I would say, right, first 2 weeks, leave me alone. I'm going to get some books and I'm going to read them all and try and get a grip on the theory of this business. And then I'll start talking to you. But I don't think that happens. It's strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common criticism. But I mean, if you have a very healthy civil service and you've got the ability to bring in your advisors, I mean, you don't really need to know a lot about anything, but you need to demonstrate a bit of leadership, the ability to carry the can if things really do go wrong, and accept accountability. I think, as you say, the Westminster system, the Holyrood system is based on that principle. You don't need to know anything, but you need to know how the system works, and you need to be able to communicate. And when you're tested in Holyrood or in the House of Commons, you're able to defend your patch. You don't agree, Phil?
I think if you don't know anything on the subject, then the civil service will lead you. That they'll be able to sway you one way or another on things, basically. And it will be basically just, I guess, slightly biased advice or something like that, or the way that they frame something, leads you towards the choice that you should make. Whereas if you've seen that something from the inside, you kind of you know what's going on. So
I think the classic for that's education. So, like, if I was made education secretary, I would go in and I know what I want and I know what I think, and I'd be telling civil servants left, right, and centre, well, I didn't quite see it like that. But whereas I don't know who the new education secretary is yet. Is there a new one? Anyway, they'll go in and the unions will tell them what they think. The General Teaching Council of Scotland will tell them. Educational Scotland will tell them. The civil servants will tell them. Everyone will be they'll all be telling them the same thing. And it takes someone pretty independently minded who's already got their own philosophy of education to stand up to that and actually steer the ship in any direction at all. Whereas a John Swinney or a Shirley Ann Somerville, they come in with nothing of their own.
Yeah.
They just come in as a manager to just be captain of the ship as other people steer it. I think it's especially in Scotland where there's so much groupthink.
But that would be the philosophy of the SNP, wouldn't it? To let the experts experts lead.
Experts.
And to choose who the experts are. Yeah. So Kate Forbes has turned down rural affairs. So what was Humza thinking there? Was he thinking, well, what do you think he was thinking?
Oh,
what do you think now?
Bonnie wee lass from the Highlands.
Yes.
Send her back.
Keep it a long way away.
I think it's he's actually sort of he's missed a trick there. He could have extended the olive branch of peace almost to Kate Forbes, and yet he's just he's set it on fire and sent her packing. And she's rightfully said no thank you. I don't want involved in this. So she's just on the back benches now. We're sitting with Nicola Sturgeon, no doubt.
Yeah,
that's quite funny.
But you think he thought rural affairs?
Choice,
Yeah.
It's the right choice.
I mean, rural affairs, I'm sure, is quite an important role, actually. So, I mean, I wouldn't see it as a diminishment from a role, but she obviously does.
The thing is, it's putting her somewhere where her moral and orthodox views are going to make no difference.
Yes.
That's what they always do with people with conservative views. Put them somewhere where their views make no difference.
Is it going to be the rural areas where we'd see the rebellion come from? That very much, if you looked at what happened in the US elections and things like that, it was the towns and cities were Democrats and the rural areas were Republican.
Trump.
Maybe.
Maybe that's why we're in Denny. It's
Yeah. Here's a serious thing with this theory as well. Now they announced the winner of the election contest at Murrayfield. They said Dynamic Earth was fully booked. Okay, which it might well have been, but whatever. But I'm sure they picked Murrayfield because the SNP know that for a lot of their supporters, supporting the national rugby team or football team and voting SNP, it's just part of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so the SNP want to announce their leader at Murrayfield to cement this unity between SNP and Scotland. And I'm sure that's what they were thinking. I don't know if anyone would say it explicitly.
Of course, everything's
I'm sure that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, I'm waiting to launch into my tirade on Humza. I'm waiting to get, I mean, I just, for the life of me, I mean, I wrote an article today about Humza being, SNP officially hates Scotland by electing Mr Yousaf. Because, I mean, they've, like we were talking about earlier, signing their own death warrant, but the damage that this guy can inflict over the next 3 years can be catastrophic. It really can. Imagine electing a man in the party that was displaying open racism against white people as well, just spewing hatred and bile towards a country that's 90+% white. It's unfathomable to me that that's been allowed to happen. That this guy has been failure has ascended to the height of First Minister in Scotland. It's just the country of enlightenment is now the country that's threatening to go back into the Stone Age with this man and his policies. The transgenderism stuff and the education stuff that they've put through, along with Labour and other collaborators, we've no right to even call our schools anymore. We really don't. Phil, you're coming in? No?
Phil's having to disappear. He's got to know some.
I mean, this thing about Boroughmere High School teaching that we've got that there's not two sexes and they're not two genders, but there are in fact three sexes. It's just, I mean, it should be stripped to the title school. They really should, and it should just be called what it is. It's an indoctrination centre. We need to come back to basics in Scotland, and this guy is taking us so far away from reality that I don't think we'll remember what reality is after 3 years. And this is the damage that is potentially getting caused. And, you know, I wrote extensively on his hate crime bill. We can't quantify what damage that's done over its course, because people, how do you put a quantifier on people self-censoring? People, the silence of the populace, the fear of saying the wrong word or the wrong phrase or the wrong thing, they might get sacked to the job for not saying people's pronouns correctly. I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely bonkers. We need to go back to basics. And, you know, I'm glad that he's got the position, because it is indeed, it's set the party on fire. It was already on fire, but I mean, they've poured gasoline on it in terms of electing Humza. And I think there's no return for the SNP at this point. You know, I've been having these spaces on Twitter that, you know, it's the funeral of the SNP, because it's just they're dead and now they're a zombie party. But these zombies could cause a lot of damage in this next 3 year period. This is the fear for me, is that with Humza being put in, the deal with the Greens will remain in place, so they can probably force through any policies they want. At will, and we just know that the policies are going to come down the road. You know, the conversion therapy ban and all that stuff. I mean, it's nothing from conversion therapy. It's to stop people speaking out against this. Their kids getting transed. That's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think remembering all the new appointments as First Minister or Prime Minister or whatever, or party leaders, I can't think of anyone that started with such a cloud over them. Anyone started with a reputation for incompetence, the way that Humza Yousaf. If you did an opinion poll in Scotland and did like word association, right, what comes to mind straight away? Humza Yousaf. I mean, incompetence is going to be pretty high up on the list, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Michael, you can maybe remember back slightly longer than I can. I mean, can you remember any other appointment like this? Someone that was so widely renowned as incompetent in the top job?
Yeah, I mean, Niall is. I mean, I applaud his indignation and his anger, and I mean, we're talking about this as if, I mean, we're used to it, but someone from another planet, or say someone down in England, you know, looking at this, that, you know, they would say this is sort of the acceptable nature of Scottish politics. I mean, the guy is a disaster, has made terrible mistakes. He's highly unpopular right across the country.
Yeah.
And just you know, this small percentage, 30,000 people, whatever it is, within his own party have elected him. And where are all those people that complained about the Rishi Sunak, you know, being elected? Why didn't they go to the country to have to legitimize that appointment? I mean, nobody's saying that up here in Scotland, but he's got a lot of clouds, and you know, he's a highly dangerous man, and he sounds quite malicious. If the little scholar's day nursery story, if that's sort of correct, we might look at that later on. His transport, his speeding fines, you know, this lack of roundedness of the man. I mean, he's an ideologue, And
Yes, yeah.
and I think it's epitomized in that Murrayfield selection, this nationalism. I mean, it's almost sort of Nurembergish, isn't it, in terms of the imagery, the very careful, selected imagery that sort of reinforced this party in its connection with the national spirit of Scotland. But that's just them. But from the outside, there is these clouds, these questions about his character, questions about his history. But he doesn't look like the sort of man that's going to change direction.
No.
He's on the path. So whatever Niall writes about him, and whatever he's publishing, there's likely to be a knock on your door soon, Niall.
Yeah. That's why I've already got it barricaded. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. See, with Hamza as well, it's like he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're right. He's a dyed-in-the-wool ideologue. And now that he's risen to the top, he can now take off his sheep's clothing and reveal himself to be the wolf. This is the thing. This is how dangerous it is. I mean, he's totally disregarded his Islamic faith as well, to the point where he's pushing this transgenderism stuff. And, he's obviously he avoided the gay marriage vote inconspicuously. But the pushing of this transgender stuff is totally antithetical against his Islamic faith. And similarly to Kate Forbes, he's never picked up on that. He's never questioned about that. But Kate Forbes, as a Christian, can be hammered into the ground for her views. But obviously, Islam's a no-go topic. And it's this hate crime, self-censorship, self-silence that has affected us on such a deep level that I don't think we'll understand it for years to come. We really won't. But there needs to be a sort of dam break moment where people just start speaking out.
Yeah, I think he's really going to turn people against himself with his race baiting. Yes. Because that's really. I've said he's unprincipled. I'm not sure. I think he has got that as a principle. He's a race baiter. He's convinced that basically he's been the victim of racism, even though he's had the golden ticket throughout his career, and is only in the position he's in because he's of a different race. If he wasn't a Pakistani Muslim, he wouldn't have got anywhere in the SNP. It's a simple.
No, I mentioned that. I mean, he's privately educated as well, through and through. I mean, all the way privately educated. He'll complain about other people's privilege, and yet he'll not even look at himself. It's outrageous.
And there's going to be major mistakes from him in that direction. Because I think he won't be able to help himself. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Let's bring in Can't wait until First Minister's questions. It's going to be a cracking show. I agree. I've watched Mr Yousaf in committees quite a bit. It's always interesting watching MSPs in committees because they're having to speak off the cuff a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I've seen him. Again, it's quite polished, but quite often I've thought there's no substance to this. You've learnt a few basic lines and you keep repeating them. But sometimes the issues get a bit complex, but he's not offering anything new to it. He's not offering any thoughts, any sort of analysis to it, any originality. He's just coming out with the standard lines. So yeah, First Minister's questions is.
It sort of gets back to the fact that he's like a political robot. He's an automaton that's been created. He is. There's no thoughts in his head that are his own. And this is where we get with these politicians these days, I think, that it's all sound bites, it's all diversity, and it's just a catch-all for, social justice, make me look good type thing. I'm a great person for these, sound bites off the cuff that mean nothing. They're totally meaningless. It's actions more than words to me. And his actions speak volumes to the damage that he's caused. We can go forever on his record through justice, but even the health system, he was a health secretary during the COVID situation, where and even after, where we've got people dying waiting on ambulances, and when they call an emergency press conference about it, the only thing that he wants to do is weigh up the bodies of dead Scots and compare that weight to the rest of the UK. It's absolutely despicable, the rhetoric in which he speaks. There is no thoughts in his head that are his own. He's not on the. If there wasn't somebody with him all the time, I think he would just be walking into walls and bumping into things.
Talking of which, yeah, the famous scooter incident. I think with that, I sort of had a bit of sympathy with him, but I think he was showing off. He was deliberately going fast and being filmed. And so I think he did sort of get a bit of a...
It's the worst part about the scooter. I love Mary's comment. Just the comment is just scooter, because we all know what that means. But the funniest part about that is that there's a SPAD or there's a staff member running along behind them that we are paying as a taxpayer to run along behind Hamza. It's just, it really is just ridiculous how far Scotland has fallen. I mean, there's no credibility at all.
Yeah.
I'm reading that comment.
Right. SNP followers, I know, said they're no longer going to vote for them because of this. This is the outcome I was hoping for. Sensible. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it is bizarre that the SNP membership have been so... let's put it this way. I think if there'd have been just a mainstream candidate who didn't have a massive reputation for incompetence and didn't have controversial views, they'd have walked it.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have that candidate.
Well, see these SNP voters that are leaving the SNP in droves. Credit to you, but don't fall into the Labour trap as well. They voted for the GRR bill just as much as the SNP have, and they will have to live with the consequences of that as well. So I would implore people to leave the SNP. Do not give your vote to another established party. I mean, we need to fix things, and it's not going to come for the established parties in Holland. It really isn't.
No. And the Conservatives, they just drag their heels over things. Whatever the next thing is, they'll just drag their heels enough just for people to think, oh, the Conservatives, they're sort of against it, aren't they? But then give it a year or two later, they've forgotten about that, and they're just dragging their heels on the next thing. Right, I've got a comment from Jupiter. That's not very often we have Roman gods on the show, but you're very welcome. If any of your friends would be too. But does Kate Forbes ever lie awake at night thinking, what am I doing in this party? I would hope so. I mean, surely she must do, especially after this leadership campaign. She must be reflected on that. It's very difficult decision because she'll be thinking, right, I've invested all these years in a bid to get to the top. Okay, I almost made it. Maybe there'll be another chance. So if I keep my head down for another 6 years, say nothing about my controversial views, just try and carry on being popular and nice and building up support and relationships, maybe there'll be another chance. Maybe Kate will go back into that mode. No, but maybe she'll think, the game's up.
I think that was the last chance for the SNP to save themselves was to elect Kate Forbes. It really was. It was the last chance. And now they're a raging fire, and it's just going to consume the entire party at this point. Kate would be best to actually defect to her party quite quickly. I think she should defect because she will have many sleepless nights after this, especially after the leadership debate, where she's just been skewered by both our own party or backstabbed by our own party, and at the same time, journalists have come out with a knife suit as well. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, so for Kate, a substantial proportion of her colleagues, who she maybe thought she'd got along with quite well, comes to the crunch and they start. It reminds me of my situation, the school I taught in. I mean, there were people there who I thought, they weren't my best pals, but I thought I'd go along okay with them and have a chat at the dinner table every now and again. And all's well. Then I get my GTCS case and they're publicly complaining that I wasn't struck off. I think, hang on a minute. What? No. It makes you realize that just how much hostility there is behind the scenes that you can be on. And Kate will have gone through that same experience. She'll be thinking, I remember having a drink with that fella. We had a really nice chat. We had a great laugh. I thought we were sort of friends a bit. And that. So that,
I think she'll be shocked at the level of vitriol that's come out against her. She will. She'll be shocked.
Yeah. Right, here we are. This Mario Lucas is quite forthright tonight. Most worrying thing about Kate Forbes is a willingness to sacrifice a 6-month-old daughter on the altar of her own ambition. Discuss. Michael, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose your wife's alluding to the fact that, that child will have gone into these great daycare centres or something that the SNP have set up, or rather than, looking after that child. because I mean, what a traumatic thing at 6 months to then go back into full-time politics, and who's looking after that child? I mean, they are sort of sacrificed on an altar of ambition. So perhaps that's something else that will keep her awake at night, and she might realize, thank goodness I didn't get that job.
That's exactly what I thought as well. I wouldn't be surprised to hear her say at some point, I'm actually glad I didn't get it, because I would have missed out on this experience I've had, being mum. Mm-hmm. When Kate was speaking about that to an interviewer, she said, I really had to weigh it up a lot. And I thought, this is a real sacrifice, and I really had to take the decision seriously. I just wanted to say, sacrifice for who?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
She was meaning just sacrifice for herself. Well, this is many things, though. Kate's put herself in this position where she's torn in two directions. And as someone said, when her head's on the pillow, she'll have to think that through for herself. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if she comes out openly and speaks about some of the decisions she's had to make, having reflected on them in the future. Well, let's see. Kate was set up to fail when she criticized the trans. She signed that letter that just said we should slow down a bit on this. I think a few SNP MSPs signed a letter to Nicola Sturgeon saying, let's not rush into this, even though they took about 3 years over it or something. They were hardly rushing. But basically, they were basically saying, we don't think this is a good idea, but we know we're not allowed to criticize SNP policy. So we're not criticizing your policy. We're just saying slow down. But everyone knew what it really meant, just that they didn't agree with this. Now, I would imagine within the power structure of the SNP, that wouldn't have gone down well. Let's put it that way.
The criticism of the trans agenda will become fashionable. Mark my words, it absolutely will, because we'll all be woken up to the absolute horror that's happening. And who's the victims in this? It's the children who are getting trans. It's the children who are getting pumped through puberty blockers. 5-10 years down the line, the regret will come in with interest. It's going to be really, really dark, really dismal. And this is why we need to head it off immediately. It needs to be stopped immediately. And anyone that's not speaking out against it right now is doing a disservice to these kids. They really are. So
I would say in retrospect as well, the sort of people who start speaking up, like often conservatives, once there's enough other people speaking, they'll maybe say, yeah, we agree too. I just think as a politician, that's not good enough. I'm not interested in that.
No.
Because you've got to be willing to take the lead rather than just meekly following on behind. Right, Richard Watson. If that's the Richard Watson I think it is, long time no see. Nice to hear from you. I think Yousaf is great. He's getting a battering from all sides, importantly from the press. He's starting from the bottom and will work his way down. By SNP. I absolutely agree. It's like I was saying earlier. I've never known anyone start on such a negative footing in terms of public perception of their personal qualities. I think it's unheard of. This happened.
If we cast your mind back to one of the debates, there was his untrustworthiness percentage was higher than the people that didn't know if he was untrustworthy or not. It was outrageous. It was 42% untrustworthy, and that's across all voters. So, I mean, you're right in what you're saying. Nobody in recent memory has started with such a dismal start. I mean, he starts. It says Nicola Sturgeon's left a solid foundation for him to work upon. Okay. No, she's left a burning bridge, and you're left defending it. It's just.
And certainly he was the most anti-business candidate. And the other two actually sort of spoke to the lobbying organizations and business leaders. But, as we know in politics, it's all about the economy, stupid.
Yes.
And he is a high taxation, higher and higher taxations are what settles the, finances, big expenditure projects, big spends. They don't know how to cut back. They don't realize that they're so out of kilter with the English economy that, they're just becoming uncompetitive. People don't want to invest here. And, there's a massive problem up in Aberdeen. They've been trying to speak to Yousaf for a couple of years, but he doesn't get face to face. He might send a letter. So he's anti-business, and he thinks they'll just cough up. And so that's the mentality, I think, of the mainstream SNP. The money will appear from somewhere, and the public sector has to be placated, and public services, will be financed out of the revenue take from business.
I mean, but business is getting sacrificed on this altar of progressivism or whatever. It's not progressive in any respect. He revealed himself again at one of these debates, especially with the GRR bill, where he's saying it doesn't matter about public opinion. It doesn't matter. Your opinion, Richard, is null and void. Michael, your opinion is null and void. Doesn't matter at all, because it's the agenda that what matters. And for me, that's not how a politician should actually operate. The role as a public servant has been flipped. And similar to a speech that Jamie Green made after the GRR bill, a Tory MSP, where he said, sometimes it's our responsibility as MSPs to lead public opinion. No, it isn't, Jamie. And no, it isn't, Hamza. You are supposed to respond to public opinion, not the other way around.
Yeah. I think with the I would say with that, with public opinion, it's fair enough to try and influence public opinion. If you're a political party, if you've got your vision of what's best for the country, then you want to bring people with you. But the approach of the SNPs tended to be, if you disagree, you're just a bad person. So we need to cure it. They talk about conversion therapy. That's basically the mindset they allege is behind conversion therapy. That's behind their whole approach to politics. There's people who agree with us, and there's other people who need fixing. They need some sort of treatment in order to bring them into alignment with the one true truth, and that's what they think.
Yeah, and that really frightening thing. I know we've forgotten it. The named person stuff. Where the state was trying to get public sector officials in between the child and the family. And they, even when the Supreme Court ruled against them, they still kept looking at it, didn't they, for a couple of years after, trying to get that legislation, bring some sort of compromise agreement. So these are ideologues who say to parents, "You don't know anything. You don't have the facility to bring up your children and know what's best for your children. The state can do that, and we know what sort of states follow that type of regime." And who want to break down the family, and I suppose that's why our party exists, doesn't it?
I mean, it implies that parents are somehow a malign influence on their own children. This is what the implication is. When nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at the comments here. Right, we've got to hear. To call themselves a nationalist party is their big lie. They're lacking to an agenda set by entities who despise nations. That's the big paradox of the SNP, isn't it? As they are an anti-national nationalist party. So it's as though that their nationalism mainly is driven by sort of anti-English. Want to be separate from English. Let's not say anti-English. They want to be separate from England, but the whole idea of nation states they're not supportive of at all. Which is interesting, which is why I think within the SNP, there's very little what you might call conventional nationalist rhetoric. Because I seem to remember when I first came to Scotland, Scottish nationalism, you'd hear quite a bit of, there've been more Scottish inventors from any other part of Britain. We're really clever. We invented all these things. Scots are best at this, that, and the other. And that was but that seems to have gone completely. And it's now down to, we just want to be away from Britain so we can be dissolved into Europe. That's our vision for Scotland. So it's not a distinctive patriotic Scottish vision. It's more an anti-British nationalism rather than a pro-Scottish nationalism. It's a curious one.
The speech that he made today, it doesn't matter if you're someone who's been here a day. It doesn't matter if you've been here a day, Scotland's your home. Except if you're English. You know, I mean, this is the sort of feeling that I'm getting. You know, anybody else is welcome. You know, come here all across the world. Come here, settle here. Within moments, you are a Scot. Within mere seconds, you're a Scot. But we're separating from England. You know, it's it's a weird paradigm that they've got them selling.
Yeah, I mean, the Scottish Family Party is neutral on Scottish independence, but to reiterate our policy, we don't support a referendum in this Parliament. Basically, we're going to refine our policy, but basically, I think we're moving towards we wouldn't support a referendum until there's a clear, sustained majority. I think also it's relevant to look at what sort of Scotland would it be if we did become independent. If Scotland became independent in 2 weeks' time, I was talking to someone about this recently. It's very interesting. One of the things they would do for an independent nation is they would write a constitution. And at the moment, they would enshrine in the constitution a whole host of things that are wrong. And that's quite a big problem. Because if these things are enshrined in the constitution, then they don't just become run-of-the-mill political issues. It's really, really difficult to get them overturned. So even if you're thinking, yeah, I like the family party, but I really want Scottish independence, just bear in mind, if Scottish independence happened in the immediate future, lots of things that you would be horrified by would be enshrined in the constitution, and they would be virtually unchangeable, no matter who got elected or whatever, for decades and decades to come. So I think that's a really sobering and important consideration when thinking about Scottish independence there. Right, let's have a look at some other comments. What have we got? What have we got? Let's come back. Just quoting on the majority. Hummus is a motorway to the end of the SNP with no exits. I mean, the SNP is not going to dematerialize, is it? I mean,
no, I think it is. I think it's as we speak. It's departmentalizing it. It's dematerializing as we speak, Richard. I would have to agree with you. I disagree with that one. I think it's going to fall apart, and the wheels have come off the bus already. It's on fire, and nobody can put it out.
What's the end result then? Okay, next Scottish election. Who's going to be the biggest party? Tell us in the comments as well. Who's going to be the biggest party at the next election? Labour?
Sadly, I think it potentially be Labour. I think the SNP will fall in less than 10% territory. I think they'll lose 90% of their MSPs. I think their constituency vote will hit the floor. People are finished with them. Their voters, their core votership might tend towards the Greens. I think people are so disaffected with SNP that they'll end up moving to Labour, which is also a bad thing. But to me, I mean, as a country, it'll be much better getting rid of the SNP. But still, then Labour become the menace. This is the thing.
Yeah. I mean, basically, there's no hope until public opinion shifts and people start voting according to their values on these sort of issues. So, just to reiterate the Scottish Family Party's policy, our strategy is to get a couple of MSPs in the Parliament who would never be off the telly. They'd be stars of the show because they'd be saying different and original things. And that will be an opportunity to shift public opinion. As public opinion starts to shift, family party influence increases, and then we get to the point where our number of seats becomes significant. Then the other parties start saying, oh, hang on a minute, we need to watch it here. But we need to cover off the family party that's nicking too many votes off us. We need to start, and then the whole ship starts to turn. Well, that's a long process, but in a democracy, that's the only way.
If there ever was one core reason to vote for the Scottish Family Party, it is that we'll put an end to this transgender ideology in schools day one. It won't happen. And on top of that, we'll pour weed killer on it as well, so it can't return. This thing cannot return. This ideology cannot return. Because it's damaging too many kids and a whole generation of kids growing up thinking there's more than two genders. We just can't have that. Again, we get back to the anti-reality nature of the SNP and the Greens and even Labour having voted for the GRR. Is, having a bit of paper saying I'm a girl on it doesn't make me a girl.
Yeah,
so.
Watch out! You'll get banned
on many levels.
Facebook thinks that's hate speech, by the way. So
I'm sorry about that.
That's lots of people are saying Labour. Labour want abortion legalised up to birth. That is absolutely true.
Wow.
Now, what irritates me, like Kate Forbes comes on and she gets they're really probing what you believe. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to expose your beliefs. Someone from Labour comes on. They want to kill babies just before they're born. No questions at all. No challenge. Just.
I mean, I think you touched on someone in one of your videos. I mean, you won't find a surgeon with the conscience to be able to perform an abortion past a certain time, because I mean, it's just it's murder. I mean, in America, they were doing this law that got put through, and the lassie was put in the law says, the guy says, my wife's dilating. She's about to give birth. Can I perform an abortion? And she said, this law permits that to happen. It's unspeakable horrors that await us. And if Labour pushing that, then they've just,
Yeah. But it's the media, though. The media just let them get away with it. Whereas if you went to, one of the leaders' debates, how the hosts sometimes, they had their trap set up for Kate Forbes. They were going to get her. They were going to expose her evil values. If that happened with Labour about that, I mean, what would happen? So the media is a huge part of the problem, especially the BBC, because the BBC decide what issues are going to come up. The BBC will say, "Oh, we give everyone a hard time," but they give everyone a hard time on the issues that they choose to give people a hard time on, and that's where the real power lies.
I mean, at the Sandyford Clinic, the only person that gave me trouble was a BBC journalist. So it shows you that they're always there trying to trip you up, even though I'm nimble on my feet and can't be tripped up, even by the likes of the BBC. But it does show you that they are there trying to purposely cause damage.
Yeah. For the sake of equality, of course, John, he's dead right. But disability, is allowed up till birth now anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
By law. So, which is a shocking, absolutely shocking.
Yeah, even then it's still wrong.
Of
course it is.
Right, so look at the comments. Pick the comments firing in there. We'll pick some of those up in a minute. The other big thing I'd say for the leadership campaign is that Kate Forbes was outed with a lot of her views. It's not that she chose to put them forward. She was pressurized and put on the spot and had to say things that Kate Forbes would have been quite happy to go through the whole campaign saying absolutely nothing about quite a lot of controversial values there, but she was put on the spot. But the thing was, she was always saying, okay, that's what I believe. And then the next thing she was saying was always, but don't worry, it won't affect what I do. I won't try and do that in policy. So she was never making a positive case for what she had to say, which I think is really sad. Because if you say, okay, this is what I believe, but don't worry, it's not, I would never dream of actually acting on it or implement. That's effectively saying, I'm just a bit weird. And okay, I've got these strange views, but don't
yes,
worry.
I'm in this party, but I don't believe what they stand for.
Yeah. Whereas we're saying, we've got these values, and we think this is good for people. This is going to help people. This is going to relieve poverty. This is going to help people to flourish. This is why they're important. And that's really important. So I think that the people in Kate Forbes' position can't persuade anyone of their values because they don't try to persuade them of their values. They don't put anything forward. So then that was a big message from the campaign to me. The old William Wallace free stuff. The rallying cry of the SNP.
I know.
Mr Yousaf, it makes it this free football club membership.
I know.
Okay, why football? What if someone wants to play rugby? What if some girl doesn't want to play football? Or it's just nonsense.
Why? It's and obviously free is just a massive lie because we're all paying for it. But I mean, see when I walked into the shop, I think it was a few days ago, just before the election, I seen it was like Hamza's Robin Hood statement. I'm going to tax the rich and give it to the poor. Basically, it was just so disingenuous. I mean, the crappiest Robin Hood in history.
Yeah. Just go back to what Michael's saying. I mean, how much thought has Mr Yousaf given his whole life to the importance of the economy and what you need to do to maintain a healthy economy? I would guess somewhere in the region of zero.
Yeah. Yeah,
Most of politics in Scotland is just not interested.
Yeah, I remember the day when the SNP were trying to get into power. So it must have been about 14 years ago. And Swinney was going around all the business leaders, and because we were very mistrustful of the SNP, but he communicated with everyone. He put on a very sort of gentle face. I mean, probably totally conned us, but we thought they are quite business friendly, and he came across as very persuasive. But Humza is keeping well away. I mean, he knows he'll get torn to pieces, and he doesn't want to have any connection with the business world, and he will just keep implementing these crazy policies about no reinvestment in the North Sea, and obliterating all these jobs, right across Scotland, and just following this ideology that everything will be all right in the end, and the economy will flourish through Scottish enterprise, but it will be the most highly taxed, lacking investment, lacking in economic leadership from the politicians. So that's a massive cloud sitting over his head, and I don't think he's got the way to rectify the situation or the wherewithal.
No.
I think
we can summarise. Say we think he's going to be a disaster, but that cloud might have a silver lining in lots of different ways. One last comment. Stop watching TV years ago. I mean, who needs TV when there's shows like this on? You don't need to pay a TV license and you can watch this. So,
And the advice I would give to anyone as well, learn how to start a wee fire with just sticks and just rubbing sticks together, because we're heading towards the Stone Age under Humza Yousaf, guys. This is... we need to make kindling and fires and learn to live off the land and under rocks and eat vegetation and stuff like that, because this is where we're going with Humza Yousaf at the helm. We've got 3 years to save Scotland.
Could you imagine the gaps that are going to come thick and fast from him? It's going to be remarkable, isn't it?
Sometimes I think in social, I know it's too much, but I mean, sometimes in social media, the unpopularity is actually outweighing his popularity, and it's making him popular, if you know what I mean. It's a weird balance that he plays.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your discussion. Thanks everyone for watching and for your comments. And those will be watching later. One thing to mention before we finish, don't forget Denny tomorrow morning. Come and join us by the library in the centre of Denny. Join the parents there protesting about sex education in the local school. First event of its type in Scotland, and the family party is supporting them in that. I'm going. Michael's coming as well. There'll be a few people giving speeches, and lots of parents there as well. So I'd say first event of its type in Scotland. So it'd be brilliant if you could get along to Denny, 10 o'clock in the morning, and show your support there. But thank you, Michael. Thank you, Niall. And thanks everyone for watching. And there's no live stream next week. I think we've got a week off next week, or maybe 2. I'm not sure, but we will be back soon with more of our content. Right. Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night. Thanks, Richard.